Mm. Have you ever thought about why do we have these innovations, technologies, and new things that we are actually experiencing right now? Well, no wonder because research is there that help us to gather data and even to explore more about things. Welcome everyone. Let us have a review for the language research. We all know that language research is one of the devastating or maybe scariest thing to do during your college life. But actually, it's very helpful once you were able to finish one research paper. Why? Because this paper actually helps our life to become easier and makes us survive every day. Specifically in language research, we actually tend to learn more about the language, specifically English. Let us first define what is research. Well, according to Creswell 2012, research is a process of steps to collect and analyze information to increase our understanding of a certain topic or issue. Particularly in the subject, we are going to dwell on language education research as to how we improve the pedagogy in the language. At a general level, research consists of 3 steps. First, we identify the problem. Second, we collect data. And third, we analyze and see the results. So why do we even need language research? I think it's just another waste of time. Am I right? And it consumes a lot of energy from me. Well, actually, language research helps us to discover new things or maybe innovations that we haven't known yet. Second, it improves our teaching. Third, it helps us to make life easier and even to aid us in teaching. For example, if you wanted to make a classroom interesting, what are the things you can do? Maybe you can find some research, for example, integrating virtual games or maybe music in your class. Last but not the least, it verifies. Sometimes facts that is being said before may not be true until now. Like for example, we believe that learning style is true that help us to improve or to learn better. However, with the current researches that we have, they actually debunk that myth. They believe that learning style is not really helpful in terms of learning better, but we do have our own preferred style. So another question is, what makes a good language research? How will we know that what we're going to do is good and not just anything? You know, there are criteria as to how can we say that something is a good language research. First, the problem can be stated clearly and concisely. Of course, you have to be definite as to what you wanted to focus. You cannot cover everything, so you have to be concise and focus only on one aspect. Second, the problem generates a question. For example, you see that the students have difficulty with their composition. Now, what question can we formulate? We will try to think on what is the level of the students' writing. Third, it is grounded in theory, meaning you have to make sure that it is backed up with the already existing theories. Though a research is also a stepping stone to create or formulate a theory, still you need some support. Fourth, it relates to one or more field, not just in education. Maybe you can relate it in psychology, sociology, and other fields. Fifth, it is based on related studies and literature. Remember, part of our research is the review of related studies and literature. It's like you based your research to the already existing one, but you are formulating a new one out of this created works. It is doable within a time frame and the budget. Aside from research being nerve-wracking, it will also rip out your budget because you have to print a lot of paper and even get all the resources that you can have in order to accomplish it. The same way, the time. Your teachers will provide you the time as to when you should finish it. So make sure that you will be able to do it and it's feasible and practical. Alright? Data are available or can be obtained. Remember, it's easy for you to have access to the data you're aiming at. It will be very difficult if you don't have any access or it's impossible to gain it. Lastly, the researcher already have the view as to what they will be doing in that research. So once they created that problem or that title, they already have a plan as to what they're going to do in order to answer that question. Alright, now let's proceed with the parts of a language research. The first part, we need to have an abstract. It's the summary of the research. It's the overall view. Like once you see it, you already have the gist as to what happened in that research. Then, in the chapter 1, we have the introduction. First, it consists of the background of the study. You need to provide to your reader the existing issues as to why you pursue that study. You have to give them the background. After that, we also have the significance of the study, the importance. Why is it important to the teachers, students, parents, stockholders, administrations, anyone that you think that will benefit from your research? We also have the statement of the problem. This is like the heart of your study. It will not or it cannot stand alone without this SOP. Okay? Also, the scope and the limitation. The scope and the limitation will give you the boundary as to where you should stop searching. Remember, it is language research. It's very hard to cover everything. You need to have an in-depth discussion, so you focus only on one thing. Conceptual framework is also part of the chapter 1, wherein you include the process of your research. Most commonly used framework is the IPO. This is applicable with descriptive research or maybe with correlational research. There is also what we call the IVDV, wherein we have the independent variable and a dependent variable. This table is used for experimental research. And what I recommend most is maybe you create your own conceptual framework. I think that will fit most with your paper. Then after conceptual, the theoretical framework. Well, in our case, we need to provide 2 to 3 language theories that is applicable to your research. Some examples of the theoretical framework can be Jean Piaget's cognitivism. We also have Lev Vygotsky's social constructivism, Noam Chomsky's nativism, B.F. Skinner, Albert Bandura's behaviorism, and other types of learning theories. You can have that and relate it, okay? You have to relate that to your research as to why you choose that theory and why does it fit your problem. For the second part, let us have the literature review wherein you are going to collect, okay? You have to collect lots of studies, blogs, articles that is related to your research. It could be divided in related studies and related literature. How are they different? Well, related studies focuses on the research itself. Those that already have problem or participants or data, methodology, and results. However, the review of related literature, this is broader because these are the things that is not research. For example, are the articles, newspapers, brochures, blogs, and other things. Okay. Third part is the most important and the part where the panelists commonly ask question, which is the methodology. This methodology is actually an important part because it's like the blueprint. How are you going to collect data, to analyze data, and to gather results? You have to specifically tell to your readers your process. We also have the summary of findings. Once you already gather the data, then it's time to analyze that. So that is for the summary of findings. You just give the numbers and somehow an interpretation from that. Then we proceed with the conclusion. The conclusion is like the interpretation or an in-depth explanation of the summary of findings. If summary of findings like a surface level, like you're just telling what's in a table that you have provided, well, in the conclusion, you are making sense of those numbers. Lastly will be the recommendation. Well, after you realize the results, what should be done? You know, these recommendations can come to 2 forms. The first form is that what can you recommend with your research? Like for example, you chose senior high school student, maybe you can have elementary students. You can recommend that to the future researchers. The second form of recommendation is when you get the results and then what the student should do. For example, there is a problem with the writing of the students. Now, what do you recommend? Maybe you try to say to give action plan, a program, webinars, or other things. After we've known the parts of language research, let us now proceed with identifying the research topic. How do we even select a good topic for language research? First, you have to choose a subject that interests you. Remember, it's hard to pursue into something that you really don't like. So make sure that when you look for a topic, it is something that makes you curious of. And then second, make sure that it's supported by research. Now, you realize that, oh, I really wanted to do this research. The thing is it backed up with some other research? Third, you focus only on a limited aspect. Again and again, you have to be specific, not too broad, because at the end, you will be the one who will have difficulty in finishing your study if you focus on a lot of things. And last but not the least, it should be measurable. May it be qualitative or quantitative, it's possible to analyze it and provide results. Okay? The results should not be vague. After you determine your topic, which is a general form, we now start to make it more specific by providing a title. Okay, remember, a title is like a working title because somehow once you proceed on the gathering of data, the title can be changed. Once the reader already see your title, they already have an idea as to what your paper will be about. Here are some things to remember whenever you create your research title. First, it should be something that interests your reader and at the same time address directly to their needs. Like what we're looking for here is a language education research. Make sure that it's beneficial and it is something that English teachers will look for. Second, it's better if you do not use the words such as a study of, a correlational study, a comparison study, an investigation of, because it's already given, okay? So it's better that you omit those words. Third, you have to make sure that there is the PICO. Whenever we talk about PICO, this is the participants, intervention, control, and outcome. This 4 is only applicable if you are doing an experimental research. Or maybe you have participants, okay? Just remember, in your title, you have to make sure that all variables are there. It should not contain a numerical value. Do not put any numbers in your research. You have to also avoid using abbreviations. Like for example, you have the word DepEd. Okay, you avoid doing that. Instead, you have to make it full like the Department of Education. Your title is limited to 10 to 15 content words or substantive words, meaning prepositions like in, of, is not part of the counting. Last but not the least, you have to be wary of the capitalization as well as the usage of grammar. Now let's proceed with the statement of the problem. It's very crucial also to provide specific question with your general problem. So remember, in SOP, we have general and specific. The general is your main questions, and the specific problem are like the support to have that main problem. So these are the typologies of questions we ask for the SOP. The first question that you should include in your SOP is all about the description of your data or maybe the description of your participants. The second part will be about explanation. Maybe you can talk about the causes, the factors, or other things that will support that profile. You can also go immediately to your main problem if the demographic profile is already enough. And then, the third type of typologies of question is your prediction and control regarding the problem itself. For example, questions like, is there significant differences? How is the pre-test and post-test assessment be compared? Or maybe, what's the relationship of something? Okay, so these are the questions that we usually ask for this SOP or specific questions. For example, we have here school heads management skills, teachers performance, and students academic performance. So that is the title of the research. Now let's look at the statement of the problem, which is the general problem. How do management skills of the school heads and the performance of teachers affect the academic achievement of students in Santo Tomas High School during the school year 2016 to 2017? So that's a general problem. Let's look at the specific problem. Look at number 1. Particularly, it is talking about, or it is asking the profile. Educational attainment, length of work experience, and latest performance rating. As you see, what is included in the part 1 or the profile are something that is related with your question. Do not include factors such as age, sex, if it's not related with your research or unless you're going to do a correlational study with this. Second question, what is the level of management skill of school heads in terms of technical, human, and conceptual? So you see, it's trying to explain, okay, the cause of the skill by actually describing their management skill. Third, what is the level of teacher's performance? Now, it's time now, after you determine the level of management skill, you try to look on the teacher's performance. And then the fourth, what is the level of achievement of the students based on the results of national achievement tests? So you also look at different aspects. Still, it's related. And fifth, to what extent does the level of management skills of administrators affect the performance of the teachers? So it's already trying to unravel the answer from your research problem. And last but not the least is the performance level to the academic achievement of the students. So you see, it does not go beyond the topic, which are the performance level of teachers and the level of management. In a qualitative research, there are also some particularities in creating an SOP for this. You use qualitative research words. What are these words? Explore, discover. The words such as investigate, assess, analyze. Most probably, it's part of quantitative. We use qualitative wordings. As what I have mentioned, you use how and why. Next, you ask what happened. So here's an example of a qualitative design question. So look at this one. Central question script, like, what does it mean to blank? Then, how would insert the participants describe a certain phenomenon? Okay, so that's how we do an SOP. Let's now dwell on the important parts of the research. Let's start with what is an introduction. You just have to remember that in your introduction, there should be 4. You give a description of a problem. You give what is happening, the trend, the current issues. You have to make sure that you're updated as to what is happening in the education system. Second, you discuss the nature of research. Where are you coming from? What's the origin or history of that problem? Third, the purpose of your research. It provides why do you want to pursue that topic. And last but not the least is the significance. Now, you're interested in doing that. Will it be beneficial? Well, it should be, because that could possibly be used with other papers, or maybe they can adapt the results to form innovations, or maybe to address problems. Okay? Remember, the main point here is you have to really make sure that the problem is highlighted. That is what they usually look like. Is there really a problem? It's like it's not really indicated. So, aside from giving definitions of the variables, you provide the issues. Throughout this video, I've been mentioning what we call variables. Well, variables, just to take note, it is a quantity or the characteristic that has 2 or more mutually exclusive values or properties of objects or people that can be classified, measured, or labeled in different ways. So, these are like the important terms, okay, in your title. We have 2 types. We have the independent variable and the dependent variable. An independent variable can be manipulated. It is something that the researcher modified, okay, to produce a certain result. Next, we also have the dependent variable. The dependent variable are like the expected results or the possible results. With the word itself, dependent, it depends on what the independent variable does. It is like the effect, and it cannot be controlled. The independent and dependent variable are only existing most of the time with experimental research. If you're just doing a descriptive research, most probably it's just independent variable. With the introduction, next is the review of related literature. Well, many people do not like doing this one because it's really time-consuming and you have to skim and scan and browse and read through a lot of articles and literature. Well, someone said that you can actually cram an RRL. Well, yeah, I think so that you can cram an RL, but remember, you will not be able to create a good RL if you crammed it. Okay? Okay, now this time, what is an RL? So I will only be using 3 verbs here. First is relate. Okay, you have to make sure that whatever literature or studies that you pick, it is something that is related with your research and can support your research. Second, it describes, it gives definition, it gives explanation with a certain variable you have chosen. Third, it explores. It adds up additional knowledge with what you already know. With the use of RRL, it helps you to decide if your track is correct or if your track is something that is new or not, right? So basically, a review usually means an overview, summarizing the major parts and bringing them together to build a picture of what's out there. There are 3 types of sources where you can get your RRL and RRS. The first one is the primary resources, like you were the one who collect the data. You look for a researcher and you see, that is the result. So that's primary data. You're the first one who's seen it and you reported that. Second is the secondary data. So you see someone citing another person and you wanted to also cite it. Okay, so that is secondary. There are already 2 people involved who cited what you wanted to cite. Third is the general. Have you ever looked at the bibliography or the references of a study that is very related to your research? Well, that is a general resources. You are not going to organize it with alphabetical order. Okay, like, oh, I wanted to start first with letter A and then letter B and letter C, and that is not even in bullet type. Okay, you also don't need, this is very wrong, copy paste everything. Okay, you have to paraphrase it. How do I organize this review? First, you can have chronological. Maybe you wanted to make your RL look like a historical or a timeline. Or maybe you also wanted to do a thematic. It is the most commonly used way of organizing the RL. Like, you look for themes that you found out from the already available resources. So these are the 2 ways as to how you can organize your RRL. Remember, you're not just going to patsa-patsa lang lahat, parang kinapi-paste nyo lang lahat, tapos pagsama-samahin. No! There should be a theme. Okay? It should still be cohesive. And make sure that whatever related literature or studies you put there, you make sense of it or you connect it with your research. Like, your readers will not ask you, ano ngayon? Ba't nilagay yan? I have here an example of related literature. This is just a short one. As you see, I already have here an introduction. Remember, the introduction should be correlated also with your review of related literature. Look at this one. As what you have seen, if you're going to read this, the writer start off with a definition of pronunciation. Okay? And then after providing the definition of the pronunciation, he again, or the person again, provided us the problem. Now, that is in the introduction part. Then in the middle part, somehow, the writer started to provide reasons with a given problem. And then at the end part, okay, they provided positive effects of this topic, which is about pronunciation. And in the latter, they again provided the SOP. So again, you are going to rephrase again and again and reiterate the SOP because this is the reason why you are conducting the research. So to summarize, here are the steps. You just have to give an overview, you give definitions. Second, you explain thoroughly the variables and concepts. Third, you present related studies or maybe literature. You even thematize it or in chronological order, whatever works for you or with the format that is given to you. And then you're rationalized and finalized through the statement of the problem. And then again, we have here the citation, which is the APA citation. It will take us long hours to discuss all of it, so I'll just provide you the gist. We can also use other type of format depending on what is required. In our case, we use the APA 7th format. So in the APA 7th format, this is how it should look like. Okay, I'll just give this one to you. So you start with the author, your publication for ebooks, then we also have for the online journal. With the online journal, you can notice there is like the DOI. The DOI is like the fingerprint of a research paper. This one is very unique depending on the published paper. Also, you take note that there is a possibility that there are exceptions for APA citation. But when do we make exceptions? Well, for example, the Bible. Okay? You cannot really cite the Bible. You're going to say Isaiah 20 blah blah. Isaiah BCE blah blah. Okay? You can do that. So those are some exceptions that you don't need to follow the format given by the APA, because everyone can have access with a given verse in the Bible. Even in Quran, they also make that exceptions. Also with emails, personal emails, you do not also need to cite that, because not really to the point of following the format, because no one can retrieve that. Alright? Now, with the in-text citation that we have, so for one author, this is the format. For two authors, if it's inside the parentheses, you use the symbol and. But if it's outside the parentheses for the names, you use the full word and. How about if there are three authors? Well, you have to actually tell the first name or the initial author, and then everyone else will be et al. You have to remember that each reference cited in the text should be in the reference list, and vice versa. Okay? Just remember, guys, whenever you do this RRL, you have to give credits to the author. Okay? Paraphrase, do not copy paste. Now let's proceed with the last part, which is the methodology. The methodology is the process of your research. You have to identify which of the following are you going to use. Should you have qualitative research, quantitative research, or maybe a mixed method? Let me introduce to you some of research designs that we have here. A research methodology is a specific procedures, techniques that you use to identify, select, process, analyze, and give results to your research problem. That's why you have to be really sure as to why you choose a certain method instead of the other one. You have to prove that, okay? And whatever method that you use, you have to make sure that this is the best method I can use in my paper. Let's have first the qualitative type of research. Qualitative type of research is divided into two. We have interpretive and the critical type. And there are also subsets for that. We have phenomenological, ethnographic, grounded theory, narrative, action research, and dialectics. We also have the quantitative research. We have here experimental, correlational, meta-analysis, and descriptive research. Lastly, for the mixed method, we have explanatory, wherein we started first with quantitative, then qualitative. Another is exploratory. You started with qualitative, then quantitative. And lastly is convergent. You actually emphasizes here quality and quantity, and you use at the same time to support each other. So that's convergent. With this research designs, I will not be discussing this one by one. You can actually research this part, and I just wanted to give you the idea or the concepts you have to remember for each type of research design. We also have here the research locale. Where are you going to conduct your study, or where will your data will come from? So, is it the Philippines? What particular place in the Philippines? Okay, you have to specify that. The number, okay, of data or the number of informants or respondents, where, and even their profile. Looking for the locality, you also look at the population and the sampling. In identifying the samples that you're going to use in your research, you have to provide a sampling technique. There are two types of sampling technique. We have the probability and the non-probability. For the non-probability, this is most of the time used for qualitative research, but it can also be used for quantitative. We have convenience, whoever is available. Purposive, you have a criteria. Quota, you have a specific number. And snowball, you are referring to someone that can actually help you. Or you started with someone you know, and then that someone you know knows other people, and then so on and so forth. We also have for the probability, the simple random. Simple random, everyone has the chance to participate in your study. So maybe you can do randomly pick a paper, and they will be the one who will be part of your study. Stratified, you have to select a particular group. Systematic, instead of just randomly selecting, maybe you can say all even numbers will be part, or all odd number will be part of the study. cluster, you can divide them, for example, male and female. All I wanted to have in with my participants of the study are the females. So you're clustering them. Multi-stage. With a multi-stage, you just try to do a cluster in 2 levels or more. Now, with your research instrument, you can have here questionnaire, interview, or even observation. Examples of this questionnaire, it could be a test or maybe a survey. Okay, so with a test or with a survey that you have, participants who are going to answer with that particular survey. With an interview, it could be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. When we talk about structured, you have a set of questions, you have to stick to that. Semi-structured, you have already a set of questions, but there are possible questions that will come up during the interview. And the unstructured, you don't have any questions, your question will depend on the responses. Whenever you do an observation, it could also be structured or unstructured. Maybe you can have a criteria as to what to look for, or maybe you just wanted to look at everything that you observe from a certain environment. Okay. Your type of question can vary. It could be close-ended or maybe open-ended. For open-ended, this is used mostly with interview session, but for close-ended, we can divide it into 4. Like multiple choice, dichotomous, rank order scaling, and rating scale. Multiple choice, A, B, C, D. They choose one. Dichotomous, there are yes, no, true, false. And then rank order scaling, you actually ask them to arrange it or to rank something like most important and least important. And then the rating scale, a Likert scale, is a perfect example for this one. Then, after you already have the data, okay, you now start analyzing it. For quantitative data, could be conversational analysis or discourse analysis. You can search on that further with other references that you have. And then for quantitative data, we also have statistical treatment. So you have subject for statistics. You need to cope as to how are you going to analyze the data, if it's correlational, experimental, and so on. Last but not the least is the reliability and validity of your research, particularly your questionnaire. Well, you can even have someone who's credible enough to validate your research. With validity, we are talking about construct validity, content validity, and phase validity. How are they different? Phase validity talks about how the questionnaire looks like. Does it really look like a questionnaire? Can it be read? Is it readable? Baka mamaya liit ng font. Baka mamaya ang hirap basahin. Okay? So the face of the questionnaire, not the researcher. Okay? And then we also have here the construct validity, how you constructed the question. Is it easier for your participants to answer that question? So it's also important. And lastly will be the content validity. Are the questions included in your questionnaire able to target the problem in your research? So you have to make sure that all of these are targeted. For the reliability, is more of the consistency of the results, given that the question is piloted on a certain group. You look at the time they managed to answer it. Was it too difficult? And of course, speaking of validity and reliability, your ethics, okay, in research is also significant. You have to be sure that throughout the making of your research paper, you are truthful and honest. Okay? You do not modify anything. You also contribute something to your members. It's not for the sake of just passing, but actually producing a substantive research. So these are the questions you may consider. Do you consult your advisor frequently if there are any concerns? Do you work well with your group mates? Do you consider the do's and don'ts? Do you ask permission to the administrator? And are you truthful with the results? Did you not fabricate any of this? Okay. So, yeah, those are the things that you have to consider with ethical consideration. The last portion will be just more of the summary of findings, conclusion, and recommendation, which I already discussed in the first part of this review. So, yeah, I do hope that you really learned a lot, or you get refreshed from this review. That will be it, and I hope that you continue researching, because research helps us to survive in our daily life. Goodbye, everyone. Have a good day.